I watched Bradley Williams's mouth move, but the words hit me like a sledgehammer to the chest. The measuring tape in my pocket felt heavier as I gripped it through the fabric. We're restructuring legacy costs, Jerome. Your commission drops from 8% to 0.5% effective immediately. The conference room's fluorescent lights buzzed overhead like angry wasps. 20 years of foundation building at this company, and now they wanted to strip mine what I'd earned. The $2.8 million government infrastructure contract I'd just landed. The biggest deal in company history would pay me $14,000 instead of $224,000. My name is Jerome Watson. I'm 51 years old, and I've been married to Linda for 23 years. Before I tell you how I brought down the company that tried to screw me, let me explain what those numbers really meant. Linda's oncologist had been clear about the treatment costs. The experimental therapy that could save her life wasn't covered by insurance. $180,000 up front. Our son Marcus had just returned from his second deployment overseas, and we'd promised to help him start college when he was ready. The commission from the Morrison Creek Bridge project was supposed to handle both, but let me back up. You need to understand how I got to this point. I joined Consolidated Construction Solutions fresh out of the electricians union 20 years ago. Started as a junior project coordinator making $32,000 a year, working weekends, missing family barbecues, learning every bolt and beam specification in the book. Worked my way up to senior project manager because I understood something most of these MBA types never would. Infrastructure isn't about spreadsheets. It's about load-bearing trust. The union taught me that your word is your bond. When you tell someone a job will be done right and on time, you stake your reputation on it. That's not some old-school sentiment. That's how bridges stay up and buildings don't fall down. My first big break came during the 2008 recession. Half the construction industry was laying people off. But I'd built relationships with 3 local concrete suppliers who knew I always paid on time and never changed specifications mid-project. When Consolidated got the emergency repair contract for Highway 9 after that spring flooding, I was the only project manager who could guarantee material delivery. Finished that job 2 weeks early and $50,000 under budget. The State Transportation Department remembered. Over the next decade, I became Consolidated's go-to guy for government contracts. Not because I was the smoothest talker or had the fanciest presentations. Because when Jerome Watson said something would get built, it got built. The Morrison Creek Bridge contract had taken me 8 months to nail down. 8 months of driving to the state capitol twice a week, sitting in government offices that smelled like industrial coffee and broken dreams. While other construction companies threw around fancy presentations and golf course handshakes, I did something different. I talked to the actual engineers. Patricia Rodriguez, the project supervisor, had been dealing with contractors for 15 years. She'd seen every sales pitch, every promise, every corner-cutting disaster that followed. The first time we met, she looked at me like I was another smooth-talking salesman ready to promise the moon and deliver a pothole. But I'd done my homework. Spent 3 weeks studying the geological surveys, talking to local concrete suppliers, mapping out logistics that would shave 2 months off the standard timeline. I knew the Morrison Creek Bridge had stress fractures that got worse every winter. One bad storm and the whole thing could buckle, cutting off the main route to Riverside General Hospital. Ms. Rodriguez, I'd said during that first meeting, you don't need another contractor. You need someone who understands that this isn't just about moving concrete and steel. This is about keeping ambulances running when people are dying. Her whole demeanor shifted. She leaned forward in her chair, really listening for the first time. Go on. I opened my laptop and showed her something no other contractor had bothered to research: casualty statistics from other rural areas where bridge failures had cut off hospital access. Then I showed her my timeline. Not just construction phases, but coordination with emergency services to maintain alternate routes during critical work periods. You actually understand what we're building here, she'd said. Not just another bridge, a lifeline. Took another 4 months of negotiations, site inspections, and paperwork thick enough to use as foundation material. I worked 70-hour weeks, developed a permanent crick in my neck from hunching over blueprints, missed Marcus's homecoming ceremony because I was in the state capitol finalizing permits. But I closed it, $2.8 million over 3 years, with performance bonuses that could push it to $322 million if we finished ahead of schedule. The morning after the contract signing, I walked into the office feeling like I'd just reinforced the foundation of my family's future. Coworkers, who usually treated me like outdated equipment, were suddenly asking about my weekend plans. The company newsletter featured my photo next to the headline "Record-breaking contract secured." My commission calculation was simple math that any fifth grader could do. 8% of $2.8 million equals $224,000. Enough to get Linda the treatment she needed and still have something left for Marcus's education. Linda and I had already started planning. The treatment center in Houston required a $50,000 deposit just to get on their waiting list. Marcus wanted to study engineering, following his old man's footsteps, but with a college degree I'd never had the chance to get. That was 3 weeks ago, before everything changed. Today, Bradley Williams called me into the executive conference room. He was wearing a shirt that probably cost more than most people spend on groceries in a month. Bradley was 39, brought in 6 months ago when Hartman Capital acquired us. He had an MBA from someplace expensive and a vocabulary full of corporate buzzwords that sounded like construction equipment malfunctioning. Jerome, outstanding work on Morrison Creek. He'd started, his voice carrying about as much authenticity as particle board. The acquisition team is beyond impressed with your performance metrics. I waited. 20 years in construction teaches you to read load stress in people the same way you read it in steel beams. Bradley was about to shift the load onto me. As you know, we're optimizing our compensation architecture to align with industry benchmarks and growth trajectories. He shuffled papers without making eye contact. For projects exceeding $2.5 million, we're implementing a tiered commission matrix. That's when he dropped the hammer. Your rate adjusts to 0.5% to reflect market standards for legacy team members. The measuring tape in my pocket felt like it was cutting through my leg. I'd been tapping it against my thigh without realizing it, the way I always did when the structural integrity of my world started showing cracks. That wasn't in my employment agreement, I managed to say. My voice sounded like it was coming through a bad radio connection. It's a portfolio-wide policy modification, effective with your Morrison Creek payout. He finally looked up, wearing the kind of smile contractors use when they're about to explain why your project just doubled in cost. Consider it. $14,000 is still substantial compensation. Most associates here would celebrate that kind of performance bonus. I sat perfectly still. 20 years of following blueprints, meeting deadlines, building trust one rivet at a time, stopping me from reaching across that polished conference table and showing Bradley what happens when you compromise the wrong structural member. Instead, I heard myself ask, was this policy decided before I closed Morrison Creek? Bradley cleared his throat like he was trying to cough up a nail. The optimization committee has been evaluating compensation frameworks for some time. The timing is coincidental. Coincidental. Like saying a bridge collapse was coincidental to the stress fractures everyone ignored. Congratulations again on the contract, he said, dismissing me with that contractor smile. We're fortunate to have experienced team members like you. I nodded, stood up, and walked out without another word. The hallway's polished floors echoed each step as I passed co-workers who had no idea their foundation was about to shift. Back at my desk, I opened my laptop and stared at the screen. The Morrison Creek project folder sat there, filled with every contact, every specification, every relationship I'd built over 8 months. They thought I'd just swallow this because guys like me don't make waves, right? We've got mortgages and medical bills, so we smile and say thank you for whatever scraps fall off their table. But here's what Bradley didn't understand about construction. The relationship isn't with the company, it's with the people who trust your work. And Patricia Rodriguez trusted me. I thought about calling Linda, but what would I say? Honey, remember that $224,000 we were counting on for your treatment? It just became $14,000. I could picture her face, the way she'd try to hide her disappointment behind that brave smile she'd been wearing since the diagnosis. Marcus was supposed to start classes in the fall. We'd already told him not to worry about student loans, that his old man had it handled. Now what? Tell a kid who'd served 2 tours overseas that his college plans were on hold because some MBA decided his father's 20 years of work wasn't worth honoring a contract. That's when something shifted inside me. The measuring tape stopped feeling heavy, started feeling like a tool again. I spent the next hour reviewing my employment contract with the kind of attention I usually reserved for structural engineering reports. The non-compete clause was problematic but not impossible. It prevented me from soliciting Consolidated clients for 12 months, but there was language about clients who initiated contact independently. I also pulled up the Morrison Creek contract specifics. The language was detailed about deliverables and timelines, but vague about which individuals would oversee implementation. No guarantee that I personally would manage their project. By 3 p.m., I had the framework of a plan. I drove home that evening thinking about everything I'd built at Consolidated. Not just the projects, but the relationships. Tommy Kowalski at Superior Concrete had been giving me priority scheduling for 15 years. Maria Santos at Santos Steel Fabrication trusted me enough to extend payment terms when cash flow got tight. The electrical subcontractors I'd worked with knew that when Jerome Watson was running a job, they'd get paid on time and never have to redo work because of poor planning. These weren't Consolidated's relationships, they were mine. Linda was in the kitchen when I got home, reading through another stack of treatment options. She looked up when I walked in, and I could see in her eyes that she was expecting good news about when the first commission payment would arrive. "How was your day?" she asked, the way she had for 23 years. I sat down across from her at the kitchen table, where we'd planned every major decision of our adult lives. "We need to talk." Her face went still. "The contract fell through?" "No, the contract's solid, but Consolidated just changed the commission structure. Instead of $224,000, I'll get $14,000. Linda's hand went to her throat, a gesture I'd seen more often since the diagnosis. "They can do that? After you already closed the deal?" "Apparently they can." We sat in silence for a moment. Outside, I could hear Marcus working on his truck in the driveway, the sound of wrenches on metal that reminded me of my early days in the union. "What are our options?" Linda asked. Not panic, not blame, just practical problem solving, the way we'd handled every crisis in our marriage. I reached across the table and took her hand. "I'm going to start my own company." She squeezed my fingers. "Tell me the plan." That evening, I spread out 20 years of business cards across our dining room table. Suppliers, subcontractors, government contacts, engineers, every professional relationship I'd built since leaving the union. Linda sat across from me, making notes on a legal pad as I explained each connection. "Patricia Rodriguez trusts my work, not Consolidated's," I said, tapping her card. "The Morrison Creek contract has a 30-day cancellation clause if they can't provide the personnel they promised." Linda looked up from her notes. "But your non-compete agreement has an exception for clients who initiate contact independently." Patricia and I met at the infrastructure conference 2 years before she joined the state transportation department. That's a pre-existing relationship. Marcus walked in from the garage, wiping grease off his hands. At 24, he had the same build I'd had at his age. But the military had given him something I'd never learned: how to think strategically under pressure. "Dad," I couldn't help overhearing. "You're really going to take on your old company?" I gathered up the business cards. "I'm going to build something better." The next morning, I made the call. "Patricia, it's Jerome Watson. Any chance you're available for coffee tomorrow morning? Need to discuss something important about Morrison Creek implementation." She texted back within 10 minutes. 7 a.m. at Murphy's Diner before my project meeting. This better be good news. I spent the rest of that day setting up the basic framework for Watson Construction Solutions. Business registration, tax ID number, basic liability insurance. Nothing that violated my current employment agreement, just preparation. Linda helped me draft a business plan that evening. Her background in accounting came in handy when we started calculating startup costs and cash flow projections. We'd need $75,000 to operate for the first 6 months, equipment deposits, office lease, insurance bonds. We had $43,000 in savings. "We can refinance the house," Linda said, running numbers on her calculator. "That's a hell of a risk, especially with your treatment costs." She looked at me with the same determination I'd seen when she decided to fight the cancer instead of accepting the doctor's initial prognosis. "Jerome, in 23 years of marriage, have I ever seen you fail at something you truly committed to?" The answer was no, but that didn't make the risk feel any smaller. Patricia was already at Murphy's Diner when I arrived the next morning, reviewing paperwork over black coffee that looked strong enough to dissolve concrete. "This better not be about delays, Jerome. We've got a tight window before winter sets in." I slid into the booth across from her, my hand steady despite my racing heart. "Consolidated is planning to assign a junior team to Morrison Creek. I've been reassigned to smaller projects." This wasn't entirely true. But it wasn't entirely false either. Bradley had made it clear that legacy team members like me weren't priorities anymore. Patricia's coffee cup stopped halfway to her lips. That's not what we discussed. The whole reason we went with Consolidated was your track record. I know. That's why I wanted to meet face to face. I took a breath that felt like lifting a steel beam. I'm leaving Consolidated today, starting my own construction company. Her eyes narrowed. And you're telling me this because your contract with Consolidated has a 30-day cancellation clause for cause. If they can't provide the personnel they promised, that qualifies. I passed her a business card I'd had printed the night before. Watson Construction Solutions. I can deliver the same project for 15% less than what you're paying them, with guaranteed personal oversight from start to finish. Patricia studied the card like she was reading architectural blueprints. This is highly irregular, Jerome. So is bait and switch staffing on a $2,008 million infrastructure project. I held her gaze. You contracted with Consolidated because you trusted my work. Do you think anyone else there has the relationships with local suppliers I've built over 20 years? She leaned back in the booth, turning my card over in her fingers. What's your angle here? My angle is building something that lasts instead of making other people rich. I smiled for the first time in days. And yes, I get the satisfaction of knowing Bradley Williams will have to explain to Hartman Capital how he lost their biggest contract. Patricia was quiet for a long moment, studying the business card like it was a load calculation. You know what I respect about this, Jerome. You're playing chess while they're playing checkers. She slipped the card into her jacket pocket. Send me a proposal by close of business today. Make it bulletproof. I walked out of Murphy's Diner feeling like I'd just poured the strongest foundation of my life. For the first time in months, the measuring tape in my pocket felt like a tool instead of a weight. I drove straight to Consolidated's offices, sat at my desk, and typed a resignation letter that was shorter than a materials list. Please accept this as formal notice of my resignation, effective immediately. I will not be requiring a reference. Send it to HR and Bradley simultaneously. Then I spent the next 4 hours drafting the proposal for Morrison Creek, my fingers moving across the keyboard like I was laying rebar, methodical, precise, unbreakable. At 11:30 a.m., Bradley appeared at my desk, his face red as fresh brick. What the hell is this? He demanded, waving his phone with my resignation email. I looked up at him, measuring the load capacity of his composure and finding it wanting. I believe it's self-explanatory. You can't just walk away from Morrison Creek. The implementation phase requires continuity. Actually, I can. There's no notice requirement in my contract. I continued packing my few personal items into a cardboard box. As for Morrison Creek, I'm sure whoever you assign will figure it out. His eyes went narrow as stress cracks. This is about the commission restructuring. I stood up, box in hand. This is about understanding structural integrity, Bradley. Something Consolidated seems to have problems with. The elevator doors opened as other employees watched from their cubicles. I gave Bradley one final look. Good luck explaining the Morrison Creek situation to Hartman Capital, I said as the doors closed between us. Walked out of Consolidated Construction that day carrying nothing but a cardboard box and 20 years of relationships they'd never understood were mine, not theirs. By 3 p.m., I had Patricia's response. Proposal approved. Legal is reviewing cancellation procedures with Consolidated, expecting new contract by end of week. The next 6 months were the hardest of my career. My home office became Command Central laptop, blueprints, coffee maker, and a landline that rang constantly. Linda handled the administrative work between her treatment sessions, which were going better than expected. The experimental therapy was shrinking the tumors faster than the doctors had predicted. Marcus postponed his college enrollment for 1 semester to help get the company off the ground. His military logistics experience proved invaluable when we were coordinating multiple subcontractors and material deliveries. The kid understood supply chain management better than most seasoned project managers. Our first real break came when Tommy Kowalski at Superior Concrete agreed to extend us 60-day payment terms based on 15 years of working together. Jerome, you always paid on time when you were at Consolidated. I'm betting on you, not them. Maria Santos at Santos Steel Fabrication made the same commitment. Those new people at Consolidated, they don't understand the business like you do. They want everything cheaper, faster, with no regard for quality. You build things that last. The Morrison Creek Bridge project started ahead of schedule. Working with my own crew, guys I'd handpicked from contacts built over 2 decades, was like switching from a rusty wrench to a precision tool. No corporate bureaucracy, no MBA consultants, second-guessing engineering decisions, no surprise policy changes halfway through the job. We finished the bridge 3 weeks early and $85,000 under budget. Patricia Rodriguez called me the day we completed the final inspection. "Jerome, I've been working with contractors for 16 years. This is the smoothest project execution I've ever seen. Whatever you're doing, don't change it." Word spreads fast in the construction business, especially when it's good news. By month 8, we had 3 more government contracts. A water treatment facility upgrade in Millfield, road improvements for the county highway department, a new fire station in Riverside that would serve the communities affected by the Morrison Creek Bridge work. I hired Dennis Miller, a former union foreman I'd worked with on the Highway 9 project, as my operations manager. Then came Anthony Garcia, an electrical contractor who'd been undervalued at his previous firm for years. Both of them were guys in their late 40s who understood that experience and reliability matter more than youth and cheap labor. The best news came during Linda's 1-year follow-up appointment. The experimental treatment had worked, complete remission. The doctor actually used the word cured, something he'd been reluctant to say before. That night, Linda and I sat on our back porch watching Marcus work on a project timeline for the fire station contract. He'd decided to finish his degree in construction management. But as a part-time student while working for Watson Construction, "You did it," Linda said, taking my hand. "You really did it." "We did it," I corrected her. "Couldn't have happened without you handling the business side." The real satisfaction came 8 months after I left Consolidated. Rachel Thompson, my former colleague, called with news that made me laugh out loud. "Jerome, you probably haven't heard. Bradley got terminated last month. I nearly dropped my coffee. What happened? After you left with Morrison Creek, he promised Hartman Capital he'd replace that revenue within 6 months. Kept telling everyone he had major projects lined up." She paused for effect. "Meanwhile, 3 more clients didn't renew because they specifically asked for you and found out you were gone." I shook my head. I never reached out to any of them. Didn't have to. When their contracts came up for renewal, they asked for the guy who'd managed their previous projects. Word is Consolidated is down almost $6 million in projected revenue. They're restructuring again, which apparently means more layoffs. 3 years later, Watson Construction Solutions occupies a 4,000 square foot office in an industrial park that smells like sawdust and possibility. We have 18 employees and annual revenue of $12 million. Our project completion rate is 98%, and our client retention rate is 95%. Marcus runs daily operations while finishing his degree nights and weekends. Linda manages the financial side and has started a small consulting service helping other family businesses with their accounting. I focus on client relationships and strategic planning, the things I do best. Every employee at Watson knows exactly what they'll earn before they take a project. No surprises, no restructuring, no legacy cost optimization. When Dennis Miller closed a $1.8 million school renovation contract last month, his commission was exactly what we'd promised. When Anthony Garcia's team finished the fire station project 2 weeks early, the bonus structure we'd agreed on was honored to the penny. Linda drives a new truck now. Both kids finished college debt-free. Marcus graduated summa cum laude in construction management, and our daughter Sarah completed her nursing degree. We bought a cabin by the lake where we spend weekends, and for the first time in my adult life, I'm not worried about retirement. More importantly, I sleep well at night, knowing that the people who work for me are treated fairly. When someone does good work, they get rewarded for it. No MBA surprises, no policy restructuring, no legacy team member discrimination. Looking back, I should probably thank Bradley Williams. In trying to diminish me, he accidentally showed me what I was capable of building. He taught me that loyalty to a company that doesn't value your foundation is just another form of structural weakness. Sometimes I check Consolidated's website just out of curiosity. Last I looked, they'd been absorbed into a larger construction conglomerate. Bradley Williams's name appears nowhere on their leadership page. The company that once promised to be the future of construction now exists as a footnote in someone else's annual report. Jerome Watson, on the other hand, is exactly where he belongs. The measuring tape in my pocket doesn't feel heavy anymore. It feels like the tool it always was, something to measure what I'm building, not what I'm losing. The greatest gift your enemies can give you is showing you exactly what kind of foundation you don't want to build your life on. Sometimes the moment they try to break you is the moment you discover just how unbreakable you really are.
They say just forget. Move on like it's easy. But forgetting you feels like remembering someone I've never seen. I've been trying to erase you from the places in my mind, but the harder that I fight it, the more you're hard to leave behind. Every memory keeps slipping through the cracks I try to close, like a face I should remember, but somehow never know. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Every moment turns to fragments, every thought just fades to blue, like I'm searching for a feeling that still only leads to you. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. If I never met you, maybe I would know just how to heal, but now every empty moment still reminds me what is real. Forgetting you feels impossible, like chasing something I can't hold, like trying to remember someone that I've never even known. I keep reaching through the silence for a past I can't undo, 'cause letting go of what we had feels like losing something true. Some days feel off, like I'm standing but still falling. A little pain, a little tired, and no one to tell it all to. There are days that feel unsteady, like I'm drifting out of place. Every step just feels so heavy, with a smile I have to fake. A little hurt I keep inside me, a little weight I always hide, and 1,000 quiet worries I've been holding deep inside. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. I keep walking through the silence like it's all I've ever known. Every crowded room reminds me how it feels to be alone. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you. Maybe one day I'll be stronger, maybe I'll learn how to speak, but for now I keep it buried in the parts of me too weak. There's no one here to tell it to, no one who would understand. So I carry all these feelings like they're slipping through my hands. A little broken, little lost, trying hard to just get through. All these nights I stay awake with everything I never say to you.